Welcome back to Monitors Unboxed. Today it's time for my mid-year update on my top 3 favourite monitors that have been released in 2023 so far, at least of the ones that I've tested. This year has really felt like a revolutionary step forward for the monitor market with the shift to more OLEDs at the high end. And I'm a big fan of OLED, so there's certainly quite a few contenders for my personal favourite so far. OLED for PC gaming has been a long time coming, but thankfully it is finally here now. Like the video I made last year, this video is a little different to the typical recommendation video we make on the channel. When we make a best of video, we consider a wide audience and look at what many prospective buyers with different use cases might like in a display. This video, however, is a personal preference video. I'm thinking about the products I like the most, the things I've found the most interesting, and base everything around my preferences. The things I like, especially as a product reviewer, may not be the things you like, but anyway, let's get into it. My favourite monitor of 2023 so far is the Asus ROG Swift OLED PG27 AQDM. And this comes from a number of perspectives. It's not purely because it's a great monitor that I can easily recommend to many buyers, but it's also because it does something with LG's WOLED panels that I haven't seen before. So it's both a great product and a product that was particularly interesting to test with new findings that made the review more enjoyable than usual. To start with, I really like the new 27-inch 1440p 240Hz OLED panel from LG, and so far I've tested this in 2 products, the Asus model and also the LG 27GR95QE. Had the Asus variant not existed, I probably would be talking about the LG model right now instead, but as I'll get to, the Asus model is clearly better, so it's easily more of my favourite. But anyway, this new panel really brings OLED to gamers in a more significant and mainstream way than before. Sure, it doesn't have a mainstream price tag, but the format, resolution and refresh rate are all highly attractive and perhaps the most attractive we've seen from an OLED format so far. Yes, we previously have had several OLED options to choose from, including the 34-inch ultra-wide QD-OLED Samsung panels that I love, plus larger TV formats like the LG C2. But for a lot of gamers, those formats aren't what they are looking for. I personally love my ultra-wide and continue to preference it over a standard 27-inch display, but that's not a common opinion. By having this new panel that brings OLED to a standard 27-inch 16:9 display format, it feels like OLED is finally here for the everyday mainstream gamer. I also love the versatility on offer. Before this OLED panel, most HDR products were geared towards one type of gamer, that being a single-player gamer who loves high-fidelity visuals. Most HDR products in the past were 4K, moderate refresh rate, not hugely focused on speed. This new panel and the PG27 AQDM change that. You still get the stunning HDR experience for single-player gaming, but multiplayer gamers also get the huge benefit of OLED speed and motion clarity thanks to the high 240Hz refresh rate and 0.3 millisecond response times. It's pretty rare to see a product that delivers a flagship top-tier experience for both single-player and competitive gamers. Normally you have to choose one or the other, but here you don't really need to. And for the large group of gamers that enjoy a wide variety of games, that makes the PG27 AQDM and also the 27GR95QE very compelling products. From a reviewing perspective, I also really enjoy seeing where different technologies stack up, so it was quite interesting to see how close a 240Hz OLED can get to high refresh rate LCDs. We know OLED is fast, we know it has a speed and clarity advantage compared to LCD at the same refresh rate, but how does this difference play out at different refresh rates? It turns out a 240Hz OLED is pretty similar to a 360Hz LCD. Overall, I thought the 360Hz LCD was still clearer, but no doubting the OLED punches above its weight. This is a great finding for consumers, but also something that was personally quite interesting to dive into. On the PG27 AQDM specifically, this is my favourite monitor of the year so far from a technical perspective because it showed us that LG's WOLED panels can indeed be run at competitive levels of brightness relative to Samsung QD-OLED. A lot of previous WOLED monitors topped out at under 200 nits for desktop usage and delivered good but not particularly impressive brightness results for HDR. I'd also seen several examples of WOLED monitors advertising 1000 nits, but failing to actually achieve that even under any test conditions I could come up with. The PG27 AQDM is brighter and genuinely can hit 1000 nits under some test conditions, though realistically 900 nits is more in line with what the monitor will do in the real world. It's great to see a monitor using the same panel as others, but actually delivering a fundamental difference in performance, which rarely happens and is quite exciting to see as a reviewer. The PG27AQDM is certainly going to be a strong contender for Monitor of the Year, although there are a few other variants planned, such as from Acer and Corsair, so it'll be interesting to see how those products compete. But for now, this is my favorite display of the year so far. In the number 2 spot, I have the Samsung Odyssey OLED G8. While a less exciting product than the PG27AQDM, this one was an interesting one to test and feels like a culmination of improvements we'd seen across other QD-OLED ultrawides. Unfortunately, it is the most expensive of the QD-OLEDs we've tested, but it also brings a robust feature set and strong performance. And if I wasn't already an owner and user of the Alienware AW3423DW, this would probably be the monitor I'd get for my personal gaming rig. Up until this point, it had felt like a lot of the QD-OLED gaming monitors had faced a range of issues and challenges, such as fan noise, weird HDR performance, ugly designs, or a lack of upgradable firmware. The OLED G8 is the most complete of the products I've tested so far in these areas, and in fact I really like the thin, minimalistic design and silent operation without sacrificing performance. It's a great looking product, and I think it best harnesses what an OLED panel should look like, not the super thick and chunky builds of old. One of the things I personally look for in a monitor is strong color accuracy, and the OLED G8 is a great product in this regard. It has the best and most flexible sRGB mode of any QD-OLED gaming monitor, plus a wider range of calibration controls than you typically see from a product like this. In my opinion, this is perhaps the biggest strength of Samsung going with more of a smart TV processor than a typical monitor processor. It allows more features to be integrated. I'd probably never use the integrated Netflix app, but I definitely would use the unlocked color controls to ensure an accurate experience. Plus, I think the ability to receive firmware updates over the internet is genuinely useful, even though I largely don't think monitors need internet connections. From a testing perspective, this was also quite challenging in that I discovered a notable performance difference between using the HDR mode with NVIDIA and AMD GPUs, with NVIDIA GPUs delivering the better experience. That's not something I'd seen before in as significant of a way as I'd seen here, and while that discovery did frustrate me a bit during testing to figure out what was going on, it was certainly an interesting revelation. It was also good to see that when you do have an NVIDIA GPU, the HDR performance is great with access to 1000 nits of peak brightness. Aside from the specifics to the OLED G8, I just continue to really like this panel and display format in general, aside from some of the issues I've noted previously. My Alienware AW3423DW continues to serve me reasonably well, and you can hear my full thoughts on using that display for a year in another video I made for this channel. I still highly recommend this sort of QD-OLED gaming monitor to most people, and that applies to the OLED G8, which is why it's one of my favorite gaming monitors of 2023 so far. My third and final favorite monitor of 2023 for this video is perhaps a controversial choice because it's a monitor I actually don't recommend. So how can a monitor I don't recommend be a favorite of the year so far? Well, it's because I like its innovation in a way that I thought wasn't a gimmick, and I think this sort of display format shows a lot of promise for a future revision that will hopefully solve some of its drawbacks. I'm talking about the Corsair Xeneon Flex. Now, the reason why I wouldn't recommend this display to most buyers largely comes down to the poor pixel density and associated risks with OLED for productivity use. Having such a large 45-inch display with only a 3440 by 1440 resolution, combined with the text-related issues from WOLED panels, doesn't make this a particularly awesome display for desktop users. Neither does the relatively low brightness and risk of permanent burn-in. And these issues kind of defeat the purpose of the monitor in the first place. But what I do like about this product is the concept. I've seen plenty of ideas over the years for interesting new monitor concepts that never actually offer anything compelling to buyers. I'm talking things like second screens on the display, RGB LED lighting, curved 16:9 monitors, super large format displays. None of these things make heaps of sense to everyday monitor users. Even things like going way back to 3D TVs and monitors, the practicalities of that sort of setup made it very difficult for it to take off. But I do genuinely believe the flexible curve format has promise if the issues can be ironed out. This is because there are loads of people out there that use their monitor for both productivity work and gaming. When you have a large screen, especially a large ultra-wide screen, and you're using it at a normal viewing distance, it can be a little challenging to see the edges of the display relative to the center. For gaming, it makes sense to bring in the edges with a slight curve, to make the monitor easier to see in a standard gaming setup and feel more immersive. But the opposite is true for productivity work. Generally, you don't want a curve, as it introduces distortions and can make it harder to work accurately with things like video and text that work best on a flat screen. The obvious solution to this is having a screen that can change between flat and curved depending on the use case. The Xeneon Flex executes on the flexible curve quite well. The mechanism works as advertised, it allows a large range of motion to set the curve to your desired level, and it does so without compromising on image quality or other aspects to panel performance. This is basically the exact same OLED we've seen in other monitors, but flexible. And for a first generation concept sort of product, I thought the build quality was quite impressive. It doesn't feel like the curving mechanism is going to break easily, and neither will the display panel itself. Basically, I think this sort of concept has promise, and I'd really like to see it iterated upon. A higher resolution, brighter OLED panel would go a long way, and yeah, sure, it may not alleviate concerns around burn-in, but at the very least it would be a product that delivers a good visual experience for both gamers and desktop app users. It also is just a really cool product to use. It's impressive, the HDR performance is great, and the speed from OLED is as good as other 240Hz products. So those are my top 3 favourite monitors from the year so far. Usually the first half of the year is slower for releases and reviews than the second half, so I expect more products to be launched in the coming weeks, especially as Computex is right around the corner, so I'm sure when I go there soon I'll have the opportunity to see quite a few upcoming monitors. But yeah, no real surprises I guess that all 3 of my favourites have been OLED. Anyway, if you enjoyed this video and you appreciate some of our recommendations and updates on things I like, then please do consider subscribing to Monitors Unboxed and giving this video a like. If you do want to support our independent testing, we have Floatplane and Patreon. Links to that are in the description below. You'll gain access to some cool perks and bonuses like our Discord community, which is a great place to chat about monitors. So thanks for watching, and I'll catch you in the next one.